Hey guys, how is it going? Thank goodness it's Friday. And today is pretty interesting and will be packed with volatility, in my opinion, because we have the Friday end of the week for CME that closes on Friday, and we have the monthly closing. And on top of this, of course, S&P is going to have the monthly close and the weekly close, which currently is looking kind of like a shooting star, not a good sign, but everything can turn today, of course. And I wanted to give you a little update on what to expect today, what to look out for, and just to reassure maybe some of you that we're not bearish yet. I see a lot of fear in the chat, in the market, on social media. So many influencers calling for the top, saying that they successfully called the top already, when bearishness is not confirmed yet. So, what makes it bullish? What would make it bearish? And what is neutral? Basically, just waiting for the next candle to happen territory. Bearish is if we close below the body of this candle. So if we close below 100, if we round it at 108, then we are pretty bearish, because that would mean that we close below the candle coming all the way from the top. That's a pretty big bearish engulfing. What would make it even more bearish is if we close below the wicks, because then we're fully engulfing the whole candle, the wicks, and coming from the highest price basically. And historically, that is not a good sign at all. So anything above 108 is either neutral or bullish. If we close as a doji more or less like this, it's neutral. We're just gonna have to wait for the next candle to see what's happening and use the weekly time frame to kind of guide us to what's potentially coming next. So if we have a neutral candle, we'll have to step down to the weekly to understand when on the lower time frame are we turning bearish, bullish, or staying neutral. Anything bullish is if we close around 113, 110 with a very small body, and above 118, above this wick, is where it starts to be very bullish. Of course, massively bullish is if we go to 120, 125. That would send us to the moon in November if we close above this wick right there. So below this level, bearish. Anything around the 110, 111, 12 is neutral. And then above here, which would make the candle bullish, is neutral. Bullish, sorry. On the weekly, so far, it's not looking bearish. If you guys remember, I said that anything that stays within this wick is neutral and has more likelihood of reversal. What I have seen on the daily is that we have, and depending on which chart you open and which exchange that it uses, this one is from Binance, some have gone to 102, some have gone to 104. If I take the index from TradingView, it goes to 105. So it's not something very precise, but what we can see here, if we take the wick being at 105, what we're seeing is an inverse head and shoulders that is forming right now. If I take the pattern, just so you guys can see it, where we have the neckline right there, the first move down, we come back, we move again down to 103, come back here, reject, come back to the right shoulder, and are finding support right there. So if we have a bullish engulfing on the daily here at this level, it's very likely that we have the inverse head and shoulder, and once we break the trend line, then we're turning bullish. And if you guys remember, I did say that the most important level to break to become very bullish is this level, because that was the second structural bearish level that we had to break to become bullish. So above here, we're bullish. Anything within this level is neutral. But if we come back again a third time and reject, Usually when we see a consolidation box, the third touch has 70% of rejecting again. So we would come back here. And then the fourth touch is a 50-50. Coming back here with a rejection would send us lower again, and more consolidation would follow. So it's really important that, first of all, we find support around here, and when we come back to 115, that we smash through it and not find resistance. Because if we find resistance, it's very likely that we're going to continue down. I've seen that on the lower time frames, if we take the 15 minutes, there is a rising wedge here. And usually this leads to at least short-term bearishness. So we could see, I think, some volatility at the US Open, fall down to 108, retest that level, and then reverse later in the day. And that would also give us on the 30 minutes and on the 1 hour an inverse head and shoulders, which would be inverse head and shoulders on the daily and on the 1 hour time frame, which gives us a pretty good confluence that we are seeing a reversal. But we need to find support at that level. If we break that down today, that is not a good sign. So are things looking like doom right now? Not yet. No, not at all. The sell-off we saw basically happened because we had the rate cut that everybody was expecting, but the thing is that people are saying, oh, we saw a sell the news event after the Fed cut rates and this is bad. It's not really true, because what was priced in the market was a rate cut in October and a rate cut in December, and Powell hinted that a rate cut in December is not something that is guaranteed, and they will have to assess data to be deciding if they go for a rate cut or not. So this is what shook the market, because what was priced in was 2 rate cuts. It was, I think December was around the 95%. So what shook the market is the second rate cut that was priced in, that became a little bit more uncertain. And that uncertainty created a sell-off in the S&P, in the crypto market, which is completely normal. Does it mean that the rate cut is bearish? Not at all. It's just that now the market has priced in only 1 rate cut in October and no rate cuts in December. Once we get closer, we see that the data confirms a rate cut in December, then the market will start pricing that in as well. And by December, we're going to have the end of QT, which was announced and is very bullish. So we're seeing the breakdown right now of that rising wedge. It's better to have early bearishness and a late bullishness than early bullishness and then a late bearishness in the US session. So looking at what's happening, we can see that we had $500 million of sell-off in the ETFs. There was panic. People sold their ETFs. It's completely normal. Bitcoin is currently bearish. I see a lot of people, everybody was calling for October. This is bearish. The last time we had this, we had a double-digit bearish month. And yes, it's true. The last time we had this happened. It could be the first time, yes. But also here we had minus 12% and then plus 12%. So it's not because we have this that we're going to have necessarily a bearish month in November. I still expect Q4 to be bullish. And today is not closed yet. We could still reverse towards the end of the day and become bullish in October, which is something that I've seen in 2021. I noticed that just before those reversals that we had here, a lot of the times at the end of the weekly candle, we saw a reversal. At the end of the monthly, we saw a reversal. It's kind of a pattern that they use where the whole week is bearish or neutral. They push it down, and then the last couple hours, you see a reversal. It makes the candle either bullish or neutral. And what also, there's one thing that I find really interesting. Okay, I just had to quickly log back in. Bitcoin reserve on exchanges keeps dropping. So supply is drying up. Even though we saw a bit of a sell-off, supply is drying off. Accumulation is still happening. We saw a really big accumulation day on the 29th, which, considering the bearish move, we could say we shouldn't see any accumulation, but the actual, I was going to say physical, not really physical, but the spot Bitcoin is being bought up and moved to accumulation addresses. ETFs, no major sell-off. And what I found pretty interesting was Ethereum, massive accumulation, Bitcoin, so balance on accumulation addresses increasing. Same for Bitcoin, almost at exponential levels. There is no massive whale holding selling, and there is also no massive open interest. So if whales are accumulating and retail is selling their Bitcoin, then what's likely coming? What most likely is coming is, as I've been saying for quite some time, a supply shock. Because once retail has handed over all their Bitcoin, sold everything out of the market, expecting this to be the top, then there won't be that bearish pressure anymore. And a little bit of bullish pressure will create a big reversal, and then retail will just FOMO back in. And institutions and ETFs overall have been growing. They've accumulated more Bitcoin, 5%, almost 5% increase over the past 30 days. And you just have to think, how would institutions, companies, big corporate companies be able to buy their Bitcoin? For every purchase of Bitcoin, there has to be a seller. The only way that there is selling is if retail is losing hope and is handing over their Bitcoin. If they're not selling, then the supply can't be bought. So that uncertainty, in my opinion, that we're seeing, especially in all these phases of the bull run, is to force retail to sell their Bitcoin and hand it over to institutions. Because if they wouldn't be accumulating, I would be worried, but right now they're accumulating. So as I was saying, I think in my Monday update, if Bitcoin crashes, it's not just retail that's losing, it's public companies, private companies, governments, they're all losing money. So it's way bigger than in 2021 and 2022, where we had a sell-off. Most of the people losing were retail. Now we're talking about lots of companies, and the impact is potentially very big. And usually if you have such holders, public companies, private companies, they won't sell if they see a drop to 95K. They're going to hold. They bought this most likely long term. So if spot is not selling, futures will have a reaction, will have an impact, but it's only temporary. And once that supply is fully dried off, retail is done selling, we're going to see a massive reversal. I'm still bullish. I have not changed my mind. Yes, I expected October to be bullish. We're not bearish, but we're more or less neutral right now. And we still have to close the candle at about 10 hours. So in my Monday updates, I'll be able to fully talk about the candle right there. The S&P will also give us an indication. The monthly is looking good. It's also closing today, but the weekly, well, actually, we just saw a massive gap in the opening, which is very positive because we're seeing a kind of a reversal, and the weekly just went from a shooting star to a neutral candle. So expect lots of move today. We are going to see volatility. Any announcement on trades, deals, or anything like that will have a bullish impact. And I do think that once we see that full reversal, we're going to see many catalysts coming at the same time. I've seen this happening in the past. Usually it's a few things that happen at the same time, and then we see a full reversal. So I hope you guys are doing good. I know that it's scary. We didn't invest expecting it to last that long or expecting to be in a drawdown, but I do still think that everything is aligning to be bullish. If we were to break these levels, I will take action and hedge my portfolio. And I'll also explain how to do it, with how much, and all of this. And the good thing about the hedging is that when Bitcoin crashes, if that's the case, and we hedged, let's say we bought a strike price at 100 and it goes down to 50. Let's just imagine, for the example, that we have a portfolio of 10,000, we making 3,000 or 4,000 on the way down. If I had a buy price on Ondo that is about $1, I'm able to take some of these profits, reinvest, let's say I'm just making things up, at 20 cents, 30 cents, and decreasing the average buy price by 30, 40%. And then when we reverse, we would only need maybe a Ondo to go to whatever the number is, $2, $3, to get the same multiple than we are aiming today with a $10, for example. So whatever happens, if we're bearish, we're just going to reduce our cost basis and need less of a move to be able to make the same returns. If we're neutral, we'll just have to wait a bit. And if price is bullish, then we're going to make returns anyways very soon. So it's just a matter of patience and knowing how to play each move that we see on Bitcoin. If you have any questions, please let me know. And hang in there. We got this, guys. Have a great day and a nice weekend. Bye, everyone.